This is 451, 4 leagues, 5 topics, 1 show. Marcus, rock it.
Here we go. It's Premier League time, ladies and gentlemen. We're going to be talking about should Andy Carroll stay at West Ham?
Can they afford to keep him?
Well, we'll be answering that in just a moment. Where have all the old school managers gone?
They're old.
They've
gone old.
They've gone on sabbatical. And who are the teams that you thought were safe, but they're actually close to the relegation zone and still in that fight for survival? Right, let's take a closer look at Liverpool.
Yes.
To start off with, though, Brendan Rodgers
And the Brendan Rodgers revolution.
Yeah, said they could finish in the top 2.
Yeah, well, you know, when he got there, he's going to say all those things. He's going to say the right thing. Yes, and the fans are going to say, yes, Brendan's going to take us there.
Yeah.
It's not happened.
Not happened this season. Will it happen next season?
You know what? It goes back to the Champions League. They're not going to get in the Champions League. Can they attract the kind of players that's going to get them back to that level? And if they are, then how are they going to do that?
Yeah.
How are they going to do that? That's what it comes down to.
Yeah.
Nothing what Liverpool have done up to this point can make me think that they're going to get to the Champions League any sooner. Nothing.
Well, they're currently 7th, below Everton, and 30 points off Manchester United. They finished 8th last season, below Everton, and 37 points off the leaders.
Wow,
so
that's a lot. When you're talking about Liverpool, that's a lot.
Slightly improve, maybe. But after all the signings and the money and all the talk, are they better than they were under Kenny Dalglish? I'd like to say that they are. Actually,
They're going maybe in a better direction.
I think with Rodgers, okay, he did have the whole of the pre-season, and he did have all of this so far, all of this season. I think they've done okay. I think Liverpool are looking a little bit brighter than they have done. They've made some good signings. Coutinho was a decent signing.
He's about the best one.
Joe Allen and Barini haven't quite.
Can I be totally honest? You know, with Joe Allen, and as much as when he was at Swansea, you know what I mean, his stats were unbelievable. His passing side, you know, it's mainly. I'm not sure how many of those passes were incisive, I should say, as well. And passes into front men who are running onto things to score. Barini, you know, he's unfortunate, he's got his injury and stuff like that. But still, for me, I do not think they're the kind of players that's going to get Liverpool to that place where Liverpool need to be, to kicking on. I don't think them two especially. Coutinho, I think he's going to be excellent. Yeah,
he's decent. And then obviously Suarez is having a great time. I mean, they need to keep him.
Well, can you imagine?
That is crucial.
If they haven't got Suarez this season, and if they don't have Suarez for next season, and we don't know what's going to happen in the summer. That's right. In respect of where it could go, Pep Guardiola obviously likes him. He's been linked with Bayern Munich. You know what I mean? That might be a little bit of a character he might not be able to like turn down. Yeah, in respect of Suarez, and if he left Liverpool, I don't know where they would go. I don't know what would happen to him.
Well, I mean, just maybe play Sturridge up there, but I appreciate that he's not quite the player that Luis Suarez, certainly not. Yeah, anyway. But I quite like Liverpool under Rodgers. I think they're playing some better stuff, and it's going to take a little while for that to be implemented.
Yeah, but when you say better stuff, though, Marcus, I'm not sure, because under Kenny, it kind of like lost its way a little bit, and under Rodgers, as good as
Dalglish wasn't long term.
He weren't long term, but they gave him money to.
They did, but Liverpool need long term. Surely.
Yeah, well.
And Rodgers that's why they've got Rodgers in, to try and play better stuff, to try and bring some younger players through. I mean, Sterling is a good example. I think he's more sort of rested him, taking him out of the limelight for the end of the season. I think next season is very, very crucial. If they don't do it, then
what's success for Liverpool then? What's success for Liverpool?
Back in the Champions League. Back in the Champions League, they've got to be looking at.
What's going to get them there?
Brendan Rodgers. If you're a Liverpool fan and you have an opinion, then do tweet us at @ball_street or comment below. 71-year-old Sir Alex Ferguson recently got his 900th win as Manchester United manager. Now, what with Roberto Martinez and AVB and Brendan Rodgers now managing the league, what's happened to the old school managers? The hairdryer treatments, the teacup throwers, all those kind of traditionally old British-style managers.
I don't know. Time's moved on in that respect, I suppose, with managers doing the air dryer. You know what I mean?
And the odd punch, maybe, Brian Clough style.
You know, that's gone.
Thank goodness.
It's a whole new era of people and a different kind of managerial style that they have now. It's all calm stuff, and it's got nutrition and diet stuff and everything like that.
But you've seen this firsthand. You played under George Graham, then Rioch, and then Wenger.
Yeah.
Rioch to Wenger.
Well, to be honest, it's one of those, like you say, they're old school managers. George Graham and Bruce Rioch, you know what I mean? They come in and they could get very, very angry. George Graham got very angry, but it wasn't anger for the sake of it or just to dig people. It was anger because you're playing badly or you're not doing your particular job.
But what's it like when you're in the dressing room at, say, half-time? Maybe you've not done so well. The manager comes in and absolutely berates you. Especially even if he picks you out in front of your teammates.
No, you don't answer back, because if the manager comes in and he's pointing the finger at you particularly, it's because you are playing badly.
And would the manager do that?
Well, yeah, I've had that a few times. And you know, the manager's picked you out. For instance, you're up front, you're not holding it up. The midfield can't join up with you, so they're getting out of position when you lose it. The defenders ain't getting a rest because you're not doing your job and holding it up. The manager comes in. Because our team's been put under pressure because of your sloppy play or your slack play for whatever reason, and he's coming and he's giving you the air dry. You just have to take it. It's not like you're gonna answer him back. You've got no legs to stand on. You know, a manager doesn't come in when you're playing well and slaughters you. He doesn't do that. You know what I mean? So if he comes in and he's giving you the old school treatment, you know, I've seen Carl Robinson do it now. You know, he's a young manager. He's coming. I've seen him do the hairdryer treatment, and sometimes it just makes people understand, listen, you have got to get yourself going.
Have you ever seen a manager throw anything at anybody?
No, I've not seen that.
You can tell me, Ian.
No, so John Moncur one time, he threw a plate of sandwiches across the dressing room at Southampton. And, that's, you know, rest his soul, Mark Vivian Foe, you know, he died on the pitch. You know, one of the sandwiches landed on his head, and it was one of those where, you know what I mean, you know, him and Harry are really going at it, and then, you know, his sandwiches get thrown across the room, and then, you know, they land everywhere, you know, and one was right on his forehead, and, you know what I mean, you couldn't help but look and start trying to snigger. But, you know, if you start to snigger or laugh in that situation, it's, you know, it's a nightmare. Those are the kind of situations where a manager is that angry. Yeah. If you say the wrong thing at that stage, that's the kind of thing what gets you out of a club.
But yeah, I think you're going back to the original point. I think that kind of old style English manager is getting less and less at the top level.
But like I say, at some stage, sometimes it's needed. Yeah. But like Wenger. Wenger's got a different kind
Completely different.
Yeah, he's got a different kind of philosophy on the whole thing. Very calm. Didn't speak for maybe the first 10 minutes when you come in at half time.
Really?
Yeah, didn't speak. It was quite strange at the start. You know, you sat there and you're just gathering your own thoughts, and then he would say something just before you get ready to go out, and that was it. But he's not a shouter and screamer.
How did the players respond to that? Because it's so different to Bruce Rioch.
You get used to it. You know, after like 2-3 games, you know, well, at least when we go in, we can sit down, we get our drink, sit down for a while. You've got 5-10 minutes to talk amongst yourselves. What's going on? What could you be doing? What could you be doing? And then at the end, Wenger will just come in and he'll just explain something to you.
But would he dig players out though?
No. He didn't dig players out. It was a whole team thing where what you need to do as a collective.
But surely players prefer that rather than...
What do you mean?
Prefer not to be pointed the finger.
Nobody wants to finger point at
exactly.
you. But if you're playing to the point where, like Tony Adams would have a go at you and slaughter you on the pitch. Tony Adams himself would do it. Patrick Vieira would do it. Dennis would do it. He would tell you. Everybody. Lee Dixon, Nigel. We had a team of players where if you weren't doing it, you would get it from the players. And you know that if you're getting it from the players, you know that when you go in, you're going to get it from the manager. So you just it's just a case of just upping your game, man. You know what I mean? It's one of those where, like I say, I've had a few beratings. You know what I mean? Because you know when the ball's bouncing off you or things like that, and like even when I've scored, you know what I mean? The ball's bouncing off. It's not like, oh, you're going 1-0 up. And George Graham's still not going in, and he's slaughtered you even more, because what happens is that you're thinking that the goal's going to paper over the fact that you've played badly. But like, you know, the players know that, you know, on the right, he could have a nightmare, but he'd still nick a goal. George Graham weren't having that. You had to perform. You had to do your stuff. Because as a striker, your focus on the game is holding the ball. Give the defenders time to rest, because if you keep losing it, it's going back to them. Fatigue after a while.
Absolutely.
You know how it works. They're going to, you know what I mean? They get tired. They make mistakes, score a goal. So it's up to the strikers to run the channels, hold the ball, give them time to get a breather, get the midfielders to come up and support you. All of a sudden, you're in a position where you're now holding the ball and playing better.
There we go. Well, old school managers, perhaps a dying breed, certainly at the top level. But do tweet us if you've got any stories from old school managers yourself at @ball_street, or comment below.
Okay, last week we asked for your club villains, and this week on Twitter we asked for your club heroes, the players you love, players you can't wait to see. The players you pay to see. Players you pay to see. Marcus, what do we got?
A bit more positive this week, I think.
Good.
We can all agree. At Lou M. Walker says, there is only one. Captain Fantastic, Tony Adams.
Yes, and like I say, he's one of those. What was good about Tony as well is that as much as if he was having a nightmare, he'd dig you out on the pitch and slaughter you.
Really?
If you scored a goal and it was a decent goal, he'd come from the back, meet you at the halfway line, you'd shake his hand, then he'd run off, because that's his way of saying, I like that goal.
You like to jump on his back for a celebration.
Yeah, I love, well, only when you're winning the Premiership. At Sneaky Gareth says, Gary Neville, the way he would celebrate every goal, whether playing or on the bench or in the terraces, he's a United legend.
He was a great club man. He loved to celebrate against Liverpool.
Well, you know what I like about him is that it's not it's not false with him.
No.
You can see that Gary Neville absolutely loves Manchester United Football Club, and I think he's doing a fantastic job at the minute punting, because
he loves football as well.
He's
scholar of the game.
Very knowledgeable. Very knowledgeable.
Scholar of the game, and not many English players can say that.
Exactly. Yeah.
At Marshall R95 says Jamie Carragher. If not for just his performance in Istanbul and the passion and the commitment he shows, he was fantastic in the Champions League. Carragher's a big club man at Liverpool as well. Yeah. That's not surprising to see his name in there.
At William Donovan, he says Ledley King replaced Campbell in the team and in our hearts. Gave up his legs for Spurs. To be honest, he literally did. You know, I done an interview with him the other day, and he's doing a lot of work for Spurs and the Spurs Foundation now. But he literally gave his heart and soul to the football club.
And it was such a shame, obviously, with his injuries. He was a very cultured English centre-back, and again, not many people.
Best in his generation for me, and he was one of those, if he didn't have the injury to the knee, he would have gone on to be the best. I think one of his best performances when he marked Thierry in, I think it was Portugal.
In France, against France in 2004. Magnificent.
He was immense.
Came in, he was centre back Campbell,
at Mr_JD Lupton, he says, Super Frankie Lampard, 200 goals so far from midfield, 10 years of loyalty and consistency. You have to echo that.
His goal scoring record is ridiculous.
An amazing achievement.
And
Super Frankie.
To finish us off, at Carl Tompkins blog, Hibbert, Duncan Ferguson, Dixie Dean and Neville Southall. I presume he's an Everton fan. Dixie Dean, lovely mention. Scored 60-odd goals in a season once, something like that, way back in the day.
When you consider what Messi and Ronaldo are doing now, you know what I mean?
Big Dixie was doing it back.
That was some feat in them stages, but I think Ronaldo scored his 50th goal the other day, so it's still an amazing feat by Dixie Dean.
And Neville Southall, the walrus of football.
Yes, what a great goalkeeper he was.
Absolutely. Tweet us your club heroes at @ball_street. Not many players in the Premier League have ponytails, and I think that's to the disgrace of English football. Andy Carroll is flying that tail for us all, I think. He's having a good time of late at West Ham. Should they buy him? Should they bloody well go out and buy him?
Well, you know what? For me, I feel sorry for Andy Carroll. He didn't put the price tag on himself.
He didn't?
I think if he went for something like what he maybe should have gone for, the 10 millions maybe, I believe that he would be more sought after. Can West Ham afford him with the price tag that's around him? Not sure. But it looks to me like he's found a place where the fans do love him. He's one of those that can easily turn into a West Ham legend if he did go there.
If he can stay injury-free.
Well, exactly. What, five goals in 7?
Yes.
He's obviously found his feet down, and I'm sure that he'd love to stay there. But like I say, it's whether or not West Ham can afford him.
I can't see him going back to Liverpool.
Well, no.
I think it's a bit unfair. I think it's a bit unfair on Carroll because of his size, and obviously he's got great heading ability.
Yeah.
People seem to typecast him and think he's the type of striker who just wants to play for a long ball side and get up there and win it. But I think he's actually a little bit better than that, than what people give him credit for. He's not bad with the ball at his feet,
Yeah, but the thing with him is that if we're going to talk about that kind of striker, I'd more say Peter Crouch is that kind of player. He is very good as for a big man in respect to the ball around his feet. Andy Carroll, yes, he might be able to link up the play and do stuff, but in the main, it is one of those where you want to find him. You know what I mean? You want to find him.
But I don't think there's anything wrong.
I don't think you can base your team playing the ball up into Andy Carroll for him to keep it.
But you can have wingers and put crosses into the
box. Absolutely.
There's nothing wrong with that at all. I think the trouble is for Andy Carroll, obviously the price tag is huge, but people tend to think, people are just going to lump the ball up to him. Well, that's for the manager to try and get the defence to play it out from the back, for the midfield to be a little bit more cultured. Yeah, get the ball in the box from out wide. The crossing game's absolutely no problem with that.
Sam Allardyce plays in a certain way, and Andy Carroll fits that way perfectly.
Right.
You know. But like the fact is that he gives them two dimensions, because if you do play it into him, he is good enough to keep it and link up. But if you do want to go direct, he can do that as well. And I think West Ham don't get enough credit for playing like that. They can get a lot more credit because they've got somebody who can play both ways.
Yeah.
You know.
Do you see him playing for England?
Well, if he continues with that form, Marcus, of course, he's an Englishman in form. You're gonna have half a chance of getting the call up. You know, whether or not Roy Hodgson fancies him in respect of the way he's going to play up front is a whole different thing. Because what you can get into the kind of trap of is when it starts going a little bit awry for you when you're playing, is launching it up front, and that's what you don't really want. And he's the kind of player that can make you try and do that.
It happened at the Euros, didn't it?
Yes.
Yeah,
yes,
well, we shall see and wait for Andy Carroll's next move.
Okay, we're talking relegation. QPR and Reading look doomed. Who do you think's going to join them?
Well, two teams that we're going to focus on in this chat is Norwich and Newcastle.
Yeah.
Because we've talked about you know, Sunderland, Stoke, and a few other teams, but Norwich and Newcastle have been drawn into it. I mean, chances are that their 5-point and 4-point cushions may be enough to just see them through with a few games left, but they are still candidates for relegation. Norwich, they're not doing too. I mean, if you look at them, their strikers aren't scoring. Snodgrass is their top scorer with 6 goals.
Yeah.
And I think that they're a side that people have maybe just forgotten about a little bit.
Well, it's one of those where you look at Norwich and you could see they're just slowly getting in. It comes down to, again, you need to be able to score goals.
You've got to score goals.
And they can't. What they had? 1 win in 16 games, and they've had a lot of draws.
They've had a lot of draws.
They're trying to crawl over the line, and I feel, personally, that they're right amongst it.
Really?
It's very, very unfortunate against Arsenal. I thought they played pretty well against Arsenal. And the assistant referee for me is literally, honestly, it was such a poor decision. And I'm talking not the penalty, which I still find strange that he's called it from such a distance away. But it's the goal. It was the goal kick for me, which he could see literally here to there, and that is what led to the goal. And those things, people say, well,
and the offside as well.
Those are the kind of those are the kind of decisions that when it's not quite going for you, like Norwich, those are the decisions you look back and say, my God, they're not even getting the luck now, and that is what happens to you. Then they end up losing the game 3-1.
It was a spirited performance from Norwich, so they'll take.
Don't make no difference. Spirited. You can be spirited, Marcus, and lose. They were spirited and they lost.
Yeah, but away to Arsenal's spirited performance, you can take some encouragement from. So therefore, going into their next few fixtures, when they won't be away at the Emirates, they can say, right, okay, we got hard done by there. We can take some positives. Scored a goal, unlucky not to get something.
I'm not sure. I think those are the kind of things that this is why when you're at that end of the table and you go somewhere like Arsenal and you put in a performance like that, the last thing you want is an assistant referee or referee to do something that's going to lose you the game, which it did, and then for you to actually...
But you can put the blame on them, though. So no one at the club takes the blame, and that can kind of galvanise you a little bit, maybe.
You think?
Maybe. I'd like to talk to you about Newcastle
United.
Yes,
Marcus.
If I may.
Lost 3 of the last 4.
Yes.
36 points. 5 from the bottom 3. Wigan, 2 games in hand. You have to say Wigan very, very good at beating teams in and around them.
They know what they're doing.
I think Newcastle are very, very much in it. The Europa League run has not helped them. They've had some really difficult games in it. And, you know, it's one of them, Marcus, for me, where, you know, there's always a team that gets sucked in where you think, and you know what I mean? For a bit there, we was thinking Sunderland. You know what I mean? There's a bit where we was thinking Sunderland, Stoke, and that. But like, I tell you what, if you look at Newcastle, you have to say they are smack bang in the middle of it. And if anybody up there, Alan Pardew, anyone say that they're not worried about it, they are lying.
They're bricking it, aren't they?
Absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt.
Well, and getting hammered by their rivals at home is not going to help as
well.
That
doesn't help at all. I've got to say, though, with Di Canio, it was good watching his celebrations. He was very much up for it, but I'm feeling after 2 games, I know he's a very passionate guy, but he seemed majorly passionate. I think the knee slide was something that, you know what I mean? It was Mourinho-esque.
It was.
And, you know, the pumping of the chest and everything at the end. Yes, maybe that's because of all the
Stuff
rubbish that's been in there, which I think has been pretty unfair towards him, but it was an outpouring and it was very, very entertaining. If I'm gonna...
That must have been a sickener for the Newcastle fans.
Can you imagine?
They've only won one game away from home this season. They've lost 10. They've got.
You look at it, you can't see where's it going to come
they've
from.
got West Brom, West Ham, and QPR away. I mean, QPR away, you know, but at home they've got Liverpool and Arsenal on the last day. That is a tough run-in.
You know, you look at it.
West Brom are playing well.
Yeah, you might look at them, you know, QPR might want to, you know, it's one of those where you look at that running with Newcastle and, you know, what can we say about Newcastle? It's going to say, yeah, well, they'll beat QPR and then they'll beat West Ham or they'll beat... You can see them losing the majority of those games.
Could Andy Carroll score a goal that would condemn them to the relegation zone? That would be a story.
That would be a great story. It
would. Well, you said great.
It would be a great story, but it wouldn't be great for him.
No, it wouldn't be great for Newcastle.
It wouldn't be great for him.
Well, yeah, I mean, it's quite worrying for Newcastle.
Very nice, very worrying. It's not quite about it. It's very, very worrying. I think that they're in danger of going down.
Newcastle, you need to sort this out quickly for your fans' sake. This is not good. Thanks to Squawker for providing a lot of stats for that there. If you are a Newcastle or a Norwich fan, then please get in touch with us, comment below, or tweet us at @ball_street.